We are excited to see you all tonight. It has been a long week.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot has happened in the last 7 days.
Yes.
We had our talk show.
Yes.
We went to Dallas.
Yes, that was very fun.
We got to see an awards show. That was really fun. We had a family game night at church.
Yes, that was very that was fun. I didn't realize that there was a golf pool.
Golf pool.
Yeah.
Well, of course, leave it to Pastor Jerry, and he will find a way to put golf in anything, right?
Yeah.
And then Saturday, I don't even remember what we did, but here we are. It is Monday. So that means that we are here with you on the Unbreakable Marriage Talk Show. Royal, are you going to tell us what we're going to talk about tonight?
Oh, yes. Do I need to pull from the...
One day we will have this right. This is just episode 5. Maybe by episode 25, we will know the rules.
Let's see. So... Not always, because I mean, we've been together for 23 years. So I'm still working.
Yeah, andale. What are we talking about today?
Let's find out.
Oh, yep. Okay. This is a fun one. Did you say horrible bosses? Yeah, maybe so.
Wow.
Maybe this is the thing. So many of you know that Royal and I, not only have we been married for 23 years, but we've also been working in business together for the last, 12 years.
Yes, it's been a long time.
12 years in business. We survived the pandemic.
Yes.
Thank you, Lord. Survived a lot of growth curves and actually multiple businesses. But tonight's topic, before I even go into all that, is the hardest business moment. I was talking to somebody earlier today that came by, and she and her ex-husband used to be business owners together, and it is a challenge.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I mean, I hear a lot of people have a business, and then after that, their relationship doesn't work out very well, or they have a really hard struggle. And yeah, I mean, I get that. We have ours, and not that it's just like working and understanding each other.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Well, you know what she talked about, obviously the pandemic put a lot of extra stressors. And I think, one of the things that, as we talked about Unbreakable Life, and one of the reasons that we wanted to create Unbreakable Marriage is because there's so many facets of our relationship that has been tested, and business is a big one. Yes. And when you're in a relationship, in a marriage, and you're in business together, that even puts more strain on one of the other issues that's tough in a marriage, which is finances. Because if you're in business together by yourself, you're also doing finances like all the time by yourself together as well. So that adds like a whole nother layer of stress associated with that. But, tonight's topic is hardest business moments. And I guess we could talk about a couple of different businesses. I think it was when, golly, I'm trying to remember back in time. But our first business venture was when we started BPS Enterprises.
Yes. And we went to a real estate.
It was a real estate seminar. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we just had to have a credit card with like $3,500 value on it.
Spend all the money.
Yeah.
And you'll gain it all back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we learned from that one.
We learned that seminars with hidden agendas are challenging.
Sometimes it works for people. So don't ever want to say that it's completely a knockout, but it's just, you got to really know what you're doing on that. And there's a lot of ins and outs on those parts of it.
Well, and there's a time and a place, and there's places of maturity in life too that take you to where you can be successful in those types of ventures. But that was business number 1. Now we still have the name BPS Enterprises because that stands for
Brendan, Portia, and Sophia.
Yeah. So we figure we want to leave a legacy in business for our family. So that was our first little sprint in business. It didn't last long because not only were we not financially set at that point to start a business, we also weren't emotionally set, and we certainly were not discipline set either. But our next round was in a very short stint in, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called Team National.
Yes. I remember that. Yeah. Oh man, what was that? It was Team National, but it was also Global
Amway.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
actually liked that one.
Yeah.
It was fun because it was our first exposure to like motivational talks as it related to business, getting to, I remember a good friend at the time, and I still love them today, sweet, sweet
Yes.
people. And I'm so grateful for their relationship. But I met them at the bank and they gave me the CDs to listen to. And you think about all of the hours of recording of motivation and training and all of that and how far we've come since that point. And I think that was probably around 2010, 2008.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was, I think that was about right.
It was after 2008 because Sophia was already born. But anyway, so we did that for a little while, had some in-home events. They came over and trained us. We got to go to their house, got to meet them a little bit. But, again, it was one of those things where it was like, it wasn't the time and it wasn't something that we were, really emotionally connected to. But then there came something even more fun that you had an idea as you were working for somebody. Time Warner.
Oh, yes. Whenever I was working for Time Warner, I went to a veterinarian clinic and I saw that they had like a playground in the back for pets. And I thought that was pretty cool. And we've got one right here.
Hi, Bella.
But yeah, we had a hyper dog. And I was trying to figure out, man, I stayed very busy. I'm always working. And this dog is always hyper and it needed to be able to play. And I wasn't able to do that. So I started looking into it and did the research and found out I needed to make a pet taxi service. And so I started looking up north and seeing what they were doing and how they were doing it. And that was pretty cool.
It was cool. Yeah. It was so cool. He got this van. He got a little taxi sign. We had a ramp that the dogs could, climb up. And ultimately, they ended up serving a lot of situations where vets had to transport animals from one clinic to another, like for an overnight stay. And that caused him, to have to use like the ramp and the pet stretcher and all of those really cool things.
Got to learn a lot about how those worked and everything too. So that was really, really neat. And there she is.
And this is Bella. Bella remembers Pepper and the pet taxi, but she was never a rider in the pet taxi service. But that was a cool business.
I remember starting that. So just for everybody to know, service, any type of service that you do, it's amazing. That one I got made fun of a lot. People did not understand what I was doing, so they were just making a lot of fun about it, and they were telling me that was a stupid business I ever did. And then before you know it, I went to a lot of events and they let me park the van right out front. And it was great advertisement. And then they started understanding what I did and why we did it. And man, they were so excited about that.
They were.
So it was total different change. So don't ever get disappointed in what you're doing. If you want to move forward with something, try it out, see how you can get it going and move forward with it. I believe that because
I agree. Usually we have to get these animals out of here, but Bella is being quite ornery tonight, so I don't think that's going to happen. I remember how discouraged that you got, though, when you went to places, and I'm not going to name the places because I feel like these places are great organizations. But I think, if you're going to start a business or you've been in business for a while, you understand that not everybody understands what you're doing. They don't understand the relevance of it. And a lot of times people are afraid to go into business. And so they'll, downplay what you're trying to do to discourage you or whatever, protect or whatever. And really that's just their mindset and their thinking. But I remember you had come home from a meeting with somebody, a entity that was designed to mentor businesses and give them tips and stuff. And without going into the name of the organization,
no.
Tell them a little bit about that experience.
That was a shocker. I mean, I went to this place that was supposed to help you with a business, any type of idea that you have. They're supposed to kind of help you help you push forward with it, not discourage you or push you down. I just thought that was really interesting. I explained everything and what we were doing and how we were doing it.
Yeah.
And the gentleman was like, well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. I would never use your service. Your pet, my pet, I would just take myself. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And then at that, he was like, but yeah, I would never use your service. I said, well, thank you for your great advice. And I will head on down the road and try something else.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about Colonel Sanders. I don't remember his real name, but anyway, when, he tried 1,000 times or more than that. I don't even remember. And even Thomas Edison says in a famous quote, he said, I learned 10,000 ways not to do something, which was the light bulb, that we all are appreciative of today. I think as we reflect on that, it's also important, if you're thinking about going into business, that you identify who your client is. Obviously, this dude who was skilled in business was not your client. And we have had to learn that the hard way in all of the businesses that we've stuck around with. And the pet taxi is one that is not fully retired yet. We're just not currently driving pets around. It's enough to keep us busy driving this one, the little cat and the other dog around. But
other services.
I think having that business also gave you the confidence to step into our current business, one of our current businesses.
Yeah, it does. It's a, and I know we talked about that before. It's a muscle. It's strength. It helps you be stronger, and I learned a lot of that. That was something I was really discouraged quite a bit. I couldn't believe that they would do that, but sometimes you keep pushing forward, even whenever you feel like it's not in your best interest, or you know what I mean? So sometimes you'll run into those, but don't let people discourage you. If you see something that you really enjoy, try it out, see how it goes. And then if you still love it, keep going and find ways to make it better. But also it's the communication. It's explaining how it works and what you do and why you do it. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Why do you do it?
Why do we do what we do? And, there's Simon Sinek is one of my favorite speakers and presenters that I like to listen to. And he wrote a book called Start With Why. And I think he was one of the original, maybe not the original, but definitely the first TED Talk that I had seen. And he really talks about how businesses that start with why they do what they do capture the hearts and the minds of their consumers, their clients, so much better than businesses that just go into the nuts and bolts of what they do. So anyway, I love that you said that. But what I was thinking was obviously the things that were challenging with the pet taxi and the things that we learned from that really fun real estate seminar and even from our short amount of time with Team National gave us an understanding that we had to expand our thinking and we had to be open to possibilities for running businesses, because obviously when you start a business, and I look at the diversity in these businesses, like we went from, and I didn't even mention two other ones that I was a Beachbody coach for a while and started PMS Fit, which was physically, mentally, spiritually fit. The name was not so good.
Hilarious.
The name was not so good. And so anyway, so that got paused. But that was a fun one. And then of course, Mary Kay, and that taught so many really cool skills, people development, personal development, gave me an opportunity to leave a banking job and support our chimney company, which is our current business, and still have the flexibility to be a work from home mom, a homeschool teacher, and all of those things. So, baby stepping our feet into business really opened our thinking to what could be possible. So now we get to the hard part. And the question for tonight was the hardest business moment. So, fast forward from the pet taxi, a little bit after the pet taxi service, we were given an opportunity to purchase our family business, which is Top Hat Chimney Sweeps. And at first we were like, yeah,
I didn't want it. I didn't want anything to do with it. It was like too dangerous. I heard nothing but oh, chimneys catch on fire, you're going to burn, it's not going to work, and all this other stuff. So it was just same thing, discouragement. It really wants to try to tear you down and stop you from doing anything. And that's,
There was a quote that it was a story that was told about a person that walks into a really cool store, and the store is like a musical store. So they've got all kinds of musical instruments, and the guy is like walking him around from instrument to instrument to instrument. And he says, you know, this is like your violin and it's a beautiful instrument. And the price on this is XYZ dollars. And then he moves on to the next instrument and the next instrument, and he's pricing them all. And finally, the person stops at this one instrument that has the most expensive price tag on it. And she asks the store owner, she says, why is this one so expensive? It doesn't even look near as beautiful as like the violin or the piano or the, you know, whatever the other ones are. And he said, because this one is the most effective. He said, this is the tool called discouragement. And whenever I get my hands on it, I can always impact goals and dreams and desires and shut people down. And it was such a horrible and beautiful imagery of the fact of how powerful a tool called discouragement could be in the lives of people, how it can, you know, you've got these beautiful dreams and desires that are out there, but one tool that I believe the enemy uses, and sometimes he uses it directly towards us, and sometimes he uses it through people and opinions and, you know, people in high places like that particular business organization that you tried to go to get support from, or from people like your family members or your friends or, you know, whatever that is. They use that tool called discouragement, and it can cut and steal so many dreams. And I think that's kind of the place that we got to before we decided we're just going to plug in. We're going to try this. And this was the first time, I think, in business that we literally put on our business hat, our big girl panties and underwear, right? Boy, whatever.
Boxers,
our briefs. And this was like all in. Like we were not 100%. I don't think you can ever be 100% prepared for business.
No,
because you don't know what you don't know. But we were a lot more prepared at that stage in our life after, you know, working in the banking industry myself for like, you know, 12 years at that particular time. And of course, you worked in the service industry, and we had our feet in multiple business ventures and some different things, very, very, very diverse. And so we stepped into this one, and let's talk a little bit about that, because I believe our hardest moments in business were in this business. Because there was so much, like we were 100% invested. It wasn't a credit card that you can just go pay off later, which we eventually did pay off that $3,500 investment in the real estate deal. And we were like, I cannot believe we did that. Right.
Finally.
Yeah. And, you know, in inventory and other businesses and things of that nature. But in this one, it was a full-on commitment. And when you put on a full-on commitment, you're attached to it.
That is true. And like I said, I'll go back to it again. Joshua Metcalf, trust the process, keep moving forward, even when you don't want to. Sometimes there's times it makes it rough, and you just got to keep pushing forward. And then after that, whenever you have somebody on your side to help you and help you motivate you and push you forward too, is always great. So spouse or who you have next to you, work together.
But it wasn't always that way.
No,
we haven't always been on the same side.
Not at all. But we learned.
So don't paint that picture.
No, it's just working, you know, communication. It's working. It's working on getting that, building that muscle with your spouse.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, we obviously, so we purchased Top Hat in 2012, and we were, you know, trucking along. It was pretty much royal. My mom worked with us, and, you know, there was just some momentum going, and the business was just kind of trucking along, one guy in a truck, essentially, somebody in the office. And then we added another technician and decided that we didn't need to have a work from home location anymore. So we ended up getting a spot in Manor, which meant
happy to do that.
More overhead, right? So more overhead meant we need more revenue, which meant we needed
But same thing. We kind of got in our little bit of arguments on that, because
Sure.
really
Like we were
do
not on the
that,
same page 100% with that, but it required more people.
Yep. Exactly. So, I mean, just kind of saying that same thing. It's just really work together and not that try to understand each other. There are going to be times that, you fight each other, but still work through it and kind of understanding the why. And
yeah. So what does work through it look like? Because that's different for everybody.
No, it is. It's just same thing, just really trying to communicate with your spouse and explain what's going on and why. You'll get pushback from each other, and you'll just have to finally get an agreement. Just maybe sometimes it's the same thing. It's communicating it over, trying it a different way, and kind of explaining what it is and why it's so important. Find out the pros and cons and really work with each other on it.
Yeah, I think for us, one of the hardest things, when just in marriage alone, it's hard to understand that like you're an SC personality. And if you haven't done the DISC assessment, I really encourage you to do that. And my friend Julie Smith, I'll actually tag her at the bottom of today's video so you guys can connect with her. But Julie has a business where she helps people understand their personality styles. And DISC is the personality styles. And Royal is an SC. So what SC really means is that, well, that's separate. But SC would be like, dude, shh. This is my DI coming out. Okay, let me tell them what SC is. So SC would be like, I am safety oriented, security oriented. I need to have all of my ducks in a row. I need systems. I may not always follow the systems, but I need systems. I need an instruction book. I really need to understand all the details, because outside of that, if I don't have those details, then there's an opportunity that I could be caught without having all the answers. And that's a big, threat to somebody that's a SC personality, right? So they're a little bit more slow with their processing as far as, making decisions, a little bit slower on that, a little more cautious. And a lot of times SC people are more family and like connection oriented. And then, so that's our S and C. And then we have DI, and DI is more demanding. Dominant. Dictate. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to use all the D words, but we are typically the activators, the ones that want to go out and just make things happen. We want to we're very decisive. We want to make a decision and just move on because we've got a bunch of things on our plate and we're just going to check it off, right? That's typically
all the details, right?
I don't want the details. I want bullet points, right? Royal wants details. Yes. I want bullet points. And then I is like your influencers. So people that are like the life of the party, they like to have fun. They're more usually extroverted and they're out, and so they're more like a woo personality, and very much people, perhaps people pleasers at times. But, that's the thing. And so when you're married and you have your DISC and you've got your personality differences, I mean, that's pretty common that you're going to have a husband and wife that are different. But when you're married and you have those differences, they don't always come out as often as they do when you're making big business decisions as well. Right. So especially if the SC that's making the decisions is the owner and the DI is supposed to follow suit under, and we're used to making quick decisions. And so I think one of the hardest things for us was to understand that those differences that we brought to the table actually are incredibly important in how we can support one another. Whereas without having that understanding, it's very easy to get frustrated in business. And oh, by the way, when you're a full-time business owner and you're married to the person and your office is right next door to the other person, and you're also homeschool. I mean, like everything is together.
What
right?
are you doing?
Like, what are you doing? Like, leave me alone. I'm trying to get all these things off my checklist. Well, do you want to go through this whole outline? No, actually, I don't.
Rude.
So there was that whole extra dynamic around how we deal with things, not only in our marriage, but also in our business.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, okay, so if we're going to talk about the actual question at hand, Bella, you are so fun, which was the hardest business moments.
So fun.
Hardest business moments, I would definitely say
the
pandemic, where we were, she's going to have to go. Would you like to take her out real quick?
All right.
Thank you, honey. I can't have this conversation with everybody and have a tail in my face the whole time. She's going to be crying. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, so I think that the hardest moment that we had in business overall was when we were entering into the pandemic. We were transitioning from, our management that we had to new management in the middle of a pandemic. That new management was not properly onboarded because we were both trying to figure out, how do we handle this pandemic? How do we handle, are we essential in business? Are we not essential in business? And how do we handle employees that didn't want to take the risk of working? And then also we didn't want to put our employees at risk.
Yeah.
And then we had clients that, we didn't know from one day to the next whether they wanted us in their house, they didn't want us in their house. So all of these variables were in the air. And yet at that same time, we had reached a certain level of overhead for our company that required that in order for our business to survive, that we had to produce a certain amount. So it was like the perfect storm. And I know for people that are out there that are business owners, I'm probably preaching to the choir. You probably dealt with a perfect storm type situation in your business. But I remember that time very clearly when we were just like, white flag, surrender. Like, what do we do?
Yes. No, we've had our struggles for sure. It's been fun. It's just not real fun.
So I remember that time, and I think, the outcome that we had to come to was, number one, at that point, we had to buckle down on coaching. And that was hard because we were like, but there's so much money going out in like all these places. How can coaching help us now?
Yes.
Like, can we even pay our employees? Like, how are we going to logically put a value to coaching when we're just trying to make sure? So anyway, we had to make that hard decision. And one of the things that the coach said was, Teresa, shut up, sit down, sit on your hands, and be patient with Royal.
Yeah.
And the coach then looked at Royal and said, speed up, get to the point, and let Teresa do her thing.
Still working hard on that. But yes, there was. And I thought I actually had 3 different coaches, and all 3 were different. And, every one of them brought something different to the table that really helped out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Well,
I think anytime you look at challenging moments in business, it's what can I learn from this particular situation? What did we need to learn? Now, in a situation like the pandemic, I feel like, there was a lot of learning lessons, but it wasn't a lot of things necessarily that we could say, don't make that choice. That choice was made for us, right?
Yeah.
But coming out of it, there was a lot of policies that we were able to write in business, which satisfied my need and ability as a DI of being able to make quick decisions and just move forward. But it also was able to help support Royal's needs of saying, this is the process. What are we going to follow when things get hard? If you've got a process in business to follow or in your nonprofit to follow, doesn't matter. There's the cat again. If you have a process to follow, then you're not put on the spot, which is a very scary thing for a SC personality person, is to be put on the spot. So you're not put on the spot if you've got a process, because you can go back and say, okay, what does the process say? Right. And it's just being disciplined to follow that. And so his favorite book, Joshua Metcalf, which is Chop Wood, Carry Water. And the theme of that book is fall in love with the process, really just follow the process, fall in love with the process of becoming great. Just understanding that things take seasonality, they take learning curves, they take, hard moments, fun moments. Not everything is a win. There's going to be a lot of challenging things in there. But you can take all those learning moments and employ it into your business. And that's really what we had to do. And so I'm not saying things are perfect, because they're not. Like today, we're like, we need technicians, that's what we need. There's always cycles in business. But because we've taken and learned from those hard moments, now we know, okay, what do we need to have in place when those new people come on board? And how can we survive with a brand new person that doesn't know what they're doing? And we've got all these years of experience in us, but they have none. And how do we build their confidence? And that's all through following processes.
Yes. And how to be disciplined, how to not get so angry and frustrated so quickly, understanding the reasons and what and why. And, that's a big one. We get frustrated pretty quick, and before you know it, we're already running our people off sometimes. So.
Yeah, I have to say that, a lot of the overhead and the turnover that we had was because of our inability to manage the stress. And, that's what I love about the Unbreakable life journey, whether it's for yourself, for your marriage, or for your business. If we don't start with us, if we don't get our emotional intelligence in check, if we don't get our emotional control in check, if we don't learn how to communicate and meet people where they're at, and we're just spewing things at people because I'm going to communicate this out of me, whether you receive it in a lovingly way or not.
Yes.
If we don't learn those things individually first through Unbreakable Life, then when we're connecting with our spouses, it's just toxic. We're just spewing things at them.
And they don't want to hear you, and they don't want to talk to you. Hear all that you're talking about all the time. It's finding how to get out of that rut, I guess you could say. Getting frustrated over any little thing that goes on. But like I said, everybody's different. So everybody will have a different way of their actions.
Well, and I think that's really the key to remember, in marriage and in life, is that we all are different.
Yes.
Even though we were connected when we got married, we're still two very different humans who have very different thinking patterns, very different belief systems that were established really from infancy until today, different experiences that we walk through, and even some shared experiences. Like us, we shared the experience of the pandemic. We shared the experience of that real estate seminar. We shared the experience of the pet taxi and those hard times and the fun times with that. But we processed them so different. And when it comes to how we process things as a husband and wife, as a parent, whatever, we have to remember that we are different. And when we do some self-reflecting and learn that those differences again can be our superpower together, like the fact that he is an exact opposite of me, not just because he's male.
She's an exact opposite of me.
Then that means that when we embrace those differences, instead of being like oil and water, where you're just pushing away, separating from each other.
Yes.
But when you really, embrace those differences, you can literally be a force to reckon with. And it can affect your business. It can affect your relationships. It can affect the work that you put to your hands. It can affect, you may decide you're going to have your own talk show and help support other people, right?
Sure.
Like the Unbreakable Life and the Unbreakable Marriage. And I think that that's wonderful. But it literally took, I think, that pivotal moment for both of us was when we decided this is hard.
Yes.
And we needed to get support to help us see it. And it wasn't just our church community support, because, even though we had like-minded people at church, people that we love at church, relationships, family, whatever, they didn't understand the details that went along with business, right? There's a lot of things in that there's no way they could. So we had to look inward and get support even outside of our very familiar community and bring somebody in. And what I like to say as coaching is we gave somebody else permission to like peek behind the curtain a little bit and say, with love and kindness, Teresa, sit on your hands, be patient, and listen to your husband. And to my husband, speed up and, talk to her in bullet points and really and truly. But when we were able to connect that way, instead of just saying, you should be like me.
Exactly.
And I should be like, well, never I should be like you, but because that's not selfish. We are wanting to be selfish, like in the flesh. We wanted to be selfish and say, you should bend for me. You should change for me. But when we started, working with, I believe when we started working with a coach and looking inward, that's when we were able to see it's those differences that become our superpower in business and in marriage and in parenting.
And, I can also say this too, coaching, counseling, testing, all those things are, those are not a bad thing. There's reasons for them. And I know we've talked about it before, counseling, just make sure that the right person is the right one for you. That's going to really help you. That you're going to have to figure out on your own. But, and then same way with coaching too, because there's all different types, but you'll get amazing things out of them when you do that. Also, there is another test. It's, I think, and Teresa, please help me on this one because I'm not very good at this. But I think it's feeling, hearing. A lot of people have to have that. So for me, I have to see it, and then some people have to actually do it.
Sure, you're talking about learning, just how your learning style. Yeah. So some people are visual learners. Some people are. They have to hear it audibly. They have text. They have to be able to touch it.
And feelings. So. There's for Teresa, she's a D, but also she has feelings. For me, I have to understand and explain the feeling side of it to work. And for me, I have to see it and understand it. That's so there are different things out there, and it's amazing.
I remember Royal is such a visual person.
Yes.
We're both visionaries. That's just who we are. We are futuristic. We believe that, there's bigger things ahead for us, and our belief system helps us with that as well. But he is definitely a visual learner, and he can see things before they happen. I remember when we first we're going to move our top hat chimney business from Manor into Taylor. He walks in, a friend of ours had this shop, and she was like, hey, check this place out. And then they were going to move. And so this shop was going to be empty. And they're like, well, you can sublet it from us or whatever. So anyway, they got us into this shop, and Royal was like, he walks in, and it's an old mechanic shop.
Yes.
And it has 3 bays, garage doors on both sides, and dirty. It had still like the lift, air compressors,
oil stains,
rust, oil stains. And here we're coming from this location in Manor, which wasn't amazing, but at least it had a floor, like,
carpet.
It had carpet. It had, it looked like an office. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is great, but your technicians work on houses. Where are your people in the office going to sit?
There's no AC in that place either.
It was horrific. And Royal walks in, and he's like, oh, I can see it. And I'm like, I don't know what you're seeing, but I do not see it. And I'm not drinking your Kool-Aid.
It's a great deal. So I was like, yeah, we couldn't miss that out. So
today it's incredible. He had built it. He put up some walls, turned some things into bays, had a nice bathroom, a little entry room. And then we, unfortunately, last year had a crap storm. Literally. The city of Taylor decided to shoot some plumbing into our building, and it was sewage that they plumbed into our building by trying
Unfortunately, we were at the very bottom. So when they had to flush the system, it shot all the way in and it flooded our floor.
Up through it was disgusting.
We pulled the
But
toilet
even
out.
in the midst of that, even out of that, we now have an even more beautiful building because, that forced us to be, to have to tear down walls, newly built walls, and to replace a lot of things. And now we have a beautiful location that we're building a second story on. But it started with him walking into this building and saying, I can see it, and I'm like, I can't see nothing. And so, embracing those differences, because I would have said, no, let's stay in Manor. And then we wouldn't have had this beautiful building that we have today that's becoming beautiful, that's going to provide different avenues for us, podcast studio, a training facility, and just all kinds of really cool things that I would have just said no, because I can't see things the way you see them. I would have shut that down. And I think, as in a relationship with your spouse, you have to trust sometimes that the differences that God put in them is a gift and it's a superpower. And if we shut it down because our gift is not that, it's just like the person that told Royal, I would never be your customer with your pet taxi business. We have to be careful that we're not the ones that shut down that, goals and dreams. We're not that instrument, in that shop called discouragement.
No, it's so true. And you know what? Another thing is, I really loved what Teresa did. We, when we first got the business, right when we first got the business, I remember she said, we need to make a vision board. Oh, I love that. That was like the best thing. Yeah. And we went in, started looking on the computer, finding pictures. We grabbed magazines, opening them up, cutting all the pictures out of there, the things that we wanted to see ourselves being able to do. I had a fleet of vehicles on there. It was just a picture of a bunch of trucks that were service trucks. And then I had a picture of, a cruise ship. And I had a picture of a microphone.
Oh, a microphone.
And then I also had a picture of a piano. There was a lot of things that were put on there. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen next year. This was from 2015 to now. And I've done a lot of stuff off of that vision board, which you never thinking about that at all. So
yeah, well, I think I was reading something. I don't remember if it was in the Bible or where I read it recently, but it talks about, we have vision and then we can see further and then we can see further. But if we cut off vision because of doubt, because of somebody else's words of discouragement, we can probably just keep letting that discouragement be the theme of tonight, not letting discouragement kick in, because there are so many times, like our relationship could have failed many times because of discouragement. And we have to remember that is a true tactic of a true enemy that would like to steal the joy and provision and God's gift from all of us, just from a little seed of discouragement. And so I think, I love the vision board situation and looking back. And I remember, so that was 2015 and I was still working at the bank and I wasn't supporting Top Hat so much then because I was working full time and you didn't really need it. But we had on there that we wanted to go to Disney. On mine, I put that I wanted to go to Disney and I wanted to be fit and I wanted to have designer handbags. I don't care so much about that. That was
so cool. When we got to go to Disney, that's the first time she ever got to see that.
It was very cool.
Walked in, and I just looked at her and she had tears coming out of her eyes. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was so excited because she's never been to Disney World.
It was crazy.
And that was something that she always wanted to do. And she was able to do it. Put it on the vision board, Yeah. It's amazing. That was so cool.
Well, it was on the vision board and it was a fun thing. And somebody asked me a couple of years ago, well, what was your favorite thing about Disney or what did you end up coming home with? And I was like, a timeshare. It was horrible.
Don't ever get a timeshare.
Don't go to Disney if they're going to give you a timeshare. But anyway, that, so fun. But outside of the timeshare situation, it was a really cool adventure. And, again, you start with what you can see, and then God allows you to see a little bit further and a little bit further. And I remember when we first, acquired Top Hat, we couldn't see beyond the truck that burnt down like 2 weeks after we bought the
Oh,
business.
yes. I remember that.
Like, that could have been our hardest day in business. That's so funny.
That was
Like, we
crazy.
literally signed the agreement that we were buying the business, and then the vehicle that was like the only main asset for the company catches on fire. We're like, so all the things that were in the vehicle,
use some of the burnt tools.
we had like
used
tools that smelled like they had been, campfire. It was
worked
just
for the chimney.
horrible, horrible, horrible. And obviously it was too soon in the business to file an insurance claim.
Yeah, so I got a little trailer and loaded it up and was able to get around that way.
But imagine if that one thing caused enough discouragement that you shut down.
Yeah.
That you said, well, see, this business wouldn't work just like the other ones didn't work.
And sometimes, yeah. I mean, it's the same way with when you start growing a business and it goes really good, and then after that, all of a sudden it goes into a halt. You start getting very discouraged. You've done everything that you could to build it, and sometimes that can hinder you. So,
Yeah.
But another thing too, I love same thing. Pastor Jerry and Teresa says, it's all about the words. You got to be careful with your words. You say you can't, or you don't ever want to, or, I still do that, so it's something, it's exercise that you have to work on. I know that I can do anything. I can, and I see it. So I've got to keep that in my mind instead of saying I can't. And I've noticed there's and same thing, your mind is an enemy to you. So you got to fight through that. And it's easy for it to say, yeah, you can't do that.
Right. Well, we've got stories going and spinning in our mind forever. And sometimes we have to, when that happens, and this is just coaching one-on-one, free gift tonight, just for you. But, when we hear those words that are coming up, sometimes we have to sit back and say, where's that voice coming from?
Yes. Yes.
Because a lot of times you'll be surprised when you trace that voice back, because we think it's our own words that are saying it or our own thoughts that are saying it. But a lot of times it's attached to a seed of discouragement that somebody sowed in your heart, like 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago.
You don't even know it. Yeah.
And so, sometimes you have to, like, when you start feeling that, one of the things that I think we talked about last week, but anyway, question it, like, get curious. Where is this? Instead of saying, okay, well, I guess I'm discouraged again. Maybe I'm right for the, bazillionth time that maybe it's time to burn the ships and cut the cord.
Yep.
But maybe instead you can get curious and you can say, where is that voice coming from?
That's right.
Because that's probably not mine. Like, I'm not going to beat myself up intentionally, right? Now, sometimes we get to the place where we do that, but really you can always trace it back if you're willing, if you're curious and you're willing to go below the surface. Most of the time, what I find is that people that I work with, people that I coach, they don't ever go below the surface. We're such surface dwellers, and that can become a big problem in business. It can become a big problem in relationships, is that we're just trying to fight the surface to keep everything kind of at bay instead of going a layer deep and saying, okay, what's going on behind this? And then what's going on behind that? And the further you go, you're going to find the root, and then you can make a decision. Am I going to allow that root of bitterness or that root of discouragement that was given to me by somebody when I was 7 years old? Am I really going to let those words that said I was a loser or bozo, whatever they said, demon child? I heard you say that.
No, I said when you were a child.
Oh, I thought you said demon child. Somebody just
where did you get that? See, like, there you go. That's
somebody said that to you.
No, it's funny, but yeah, it's true. I mean,
where is that voice coming from, though? Because a lot of times, again, but we get stuck in the here and the now and the feeling in this moment, and then that can catapult you and drag you down.
Yes.
Or you can say, yeah, I'm not believing this lie right now. I'm going to discern, I'm going to figure out what's going on, and I'm going to cut it at its root, because it doesn't belong there, because God didn't put this business in my hands. He didn't put this marriage in my hands for me to be at this place. And there are some times that the business wasn't the right business. There's sometimes that the marriage isn't the right marriage. And that's where you really got to seek help and guidance and prayer and all of those things to figure out, is that true for you? Because sometimes it is. Sometimes there are toxic things that you just can't work past, or a business decision that sounded right in the moment that is just draining everything out of you, and there is no way out of it. And that's when you have to make those hard decisions. Not everything is quote unquote, well, you become unbreakable, but sometimes there are things that no longer are assigned to you. And that's when
there's
you
those seasons.
need to, dig in and make choices that can help you. So anyway, I've enjoyed this talk tonight, babe.
Well, good. I've enjoyed it too. I really like this.
Anything else that you want to share for our viewers about hard moments in business or marriage or life?
No, I mean, you're so true about that. And same thing, I do want to go back to that counseling, coaching, taking the test, all those things. They really help. They make you open your mind, if you're willing to open your mind to find things. And I love what Teresa was saying. Sometimes it's something in the root of what happened to you when you were younger, and it's stuck in your head and it's stuck in your mind, and you never really was thinking that would be an issue that would cause so much problems that holds you down from being able to do amazing things.
Well, what I call that in the Unbreakable Life journey is pillar number 2 is our belief system, but also pillar number 4 is our defining moments. A lot of times we think of defining moments or like, I'm on top of the world, or that was a terrible thing that I never want to think about ever again. It's either a really high or a really low, but really a defining moment is a seed. It's something that was planted in you. It's a word potentially that was spoken that you established a root system towards, and it literally frames everything around your belief system and how you function and how you respond when you're threatened, whether it's in marriage or you're threatened, because somebody doesn't see things the way that you do, or you're threatened in business. Those defining moments are those seeds. And sometimes, that's what coaching allows you to do, again, is it gives somebody permission to work with you. And you have to submit if you want it to work. There were times when I first started working with my coach, I was like, I already know all this. I could write the book. I was such a snob. And
no, not you. No.
Yes, I was. I was a sweet snob, but I was snobby nonetheless.
Sure was.
But I wasn't at the place where, yes, I needed help and I knew I needed help, but I had still this really big wall built up that said, I know it all. I don't really need to listen to you. But it wasn't until that shifted and I just kept going and kept showing up and kept doing the work that she asked me to do, even though I thought I already knew all the answers. That's, that again, you're back to your book of Joshua Metcalf, Chop Wood, Carry Water, that, that I finally came to a place where I was like worked down to a nub enough to where all the rough edges. And I think I know everything. My pride essentially is what it was. My pride was in the way, and that had to be reduced a little bit to actually grow. And I think, they say that that pride is the thing that, is like a big enemy. And there's two thinking patterns with pride. Number one, you think of like a lion, and his tribe, his family is called the pride, and they're connected and they're together, and his job is to protect. And so I think about pride in that sense, like a husband or a mama bear, right? That protection and that piece of pride. And the pride that goes along with doing a really good job and putting pride in the work that you do. That's one definition of pride. But then there's the other definition of it when we allow all of those feelings to become something that now we are unapproachable, unattainable. We now, have this wall of separation between us and everybody else. And that pride becomes destructive. And that's the pride that we talk about. And that's where I was at. I had this wall up that I believed that they couldn't teach me anything. I had already been a student of life. They couldn't teach me anything. And that pride that I had kept me from growing. And I think too many times in relationships and in business, we put that wall up of pride. And really what that is a mask for insecurity.
Yeah.
We call it pride.
Yes.
But really it's a barrier to protect you from all of your insecurities, all of your doubts, all of your fears from the rest of the world. And that is when we're dangerous because you're alone.
Like
yeah. You can't grow. Yep. You can't have intimacy because you've just got this wall.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when you should you choose to allow somebody to counsel you, to work with you, that wall had to come down. And that's where I had to get to the place of allowing that wall to come down. And once that wall came down, it was like every relationship I had was vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I had put myself out there for like the first time probably in 30 years. Mm-hmm. But those relationships, the true ones, were able to get so much richer.
Yeah. And that's so true. I mean, that was the same way for me too. It was very hard for me and I'm still, introvert. So I'm trying to work with people, and I care a lot, but I just don't know how to really have the conversation. So doing this podcast is something I'm trying to work on and try to be better. And so I hope that a lot of things that I do talk about really do give you help and motivation as well.
Well, of course they do. With all of the experiences that we have, it becomes wisdom. Mm-hmm. I love, I think about today's world, we have so much access to knowledge. Like you can, with just your phone, you can learn about anything you want to learn about. We've got nonstop access to knowledge, but knowledge unapplied is waste. Like it's just clogging up in your brain. It becomes effective when it is utilized and it becomes wisdom. That's when the knowledge becomes effective, is when you use it, you put it to work, and you can serve others through it. Yes. And that's what we've had to learn, with business and marriage and, our unbreakable journey that we both went on, separate and together. Mm-hmm. All of the challenges that we've had with raising children and the challenges that they deal with that become our challenges. Because when you love your kids, you hurt when your kids hurt, and when you love your kids and you grow up in a mindset of expectations and they don't always match up with reality, then you get hurt in that, and so, we've got tons of hopefully wisdom nuggets that we can bring and share with you guys. So, yeah.
Well, very good.
Well, that might be a wrap.
Yes.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us for, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so tonight. It was fun to talk about, the hardest moments in business. I really can't pick one. I think, the hard becomes something that we look back and we've learned from and we grow from. As I coach people on the unbreakable life journey, I tell them, stop despising the hard. Because when hard moments come, which they do, they come all the time. They come in life, they come in business, they come in marriage, they come in personalities, they come everywhere. Hard comes. It just does. We live in a world where there's adversity and there's things that are trying to slow us down and all of this. And a lot of times it's us that does it, right?
And that analogy, I mean, that's a really good one right there. It's like a storm. It comes in, it destroys a lot, but it's how you pick yourself back up, clean it up, and fix it back up again. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So don't despise the hard. And I think that's probably one of the reasons it's so difficult for us to find like one hard moment, because there is a lot of hard moments. But when you choose instead of despising it, when you choose to learn from it, embrace it, grow from it, then that's when you are on your way to becoming unbreakable. So thank you for watching with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
We love you guys, and we look forward to seeing you next week.